I am working on 298 violins, 23 violas, and 14 cellos. Hi, I'm Terry Adams. I make violins. What I've been doing is doing one step and then doing that to all of the instruments. I had played guitar years before, and because of some difficulties with my wrists, then I had to give that up. But I always wanted to play the cello. I just loved the sounds that came out of it. And so my wife told me, no, we need to go get you a cello now instead of waiting until you retire.
My dad has had a lot of hobbies in his life. When I was in high school, he was on the classical guitar, and he is a very driven person, and he's very focused, and he was awake every morning. I would wake up to the sound of classical guitar playing because he was committed to practicing.
And so we made a trip down to Utah, and I knew that in Salt Lake City was a violin making school. So I went down there, and anyway, I talked to him, and he went down and he said, this one. And he put this cello in front of me. Well, I said, okay, I had learned a scale by then, so I felt comfortable playing that, so I did. And my wife was sitting off over on the side, and she says, wow, the sounds coming out of that compared to your other cello is really something else. And then I wound up buying the cello. And a few months later, up on one of the shoulders of the cello, it started to separate the top from the sides, from the ribs. And so I took it up to a fella in Idaho Falls, and he made cellos. He told me that that was what I wanted to have happen, and then he explained about the glue that's used and explained about the different woods, and I started asking him about how violins were made. So he toured me through his shop, and the bug kind of bit. I work on the violins every chance I get. Mostly it's every day. Right now I'm at the step of carving all of the backs. I've carved some of the tops. As I went through the first one, you know, it was such a revelation the first time I carved one of them out, to take this block of solid wood and just to see this violin just evolve up out of a big gob of wood. Being trained as an engineer, it always seemed reasonable to me that if you get set up for one process, but you stay set up for that and continue on, so that you continue to make that one, you don't have to break down, do the next step, break down, do the next step, like many of the makers do. The difference, big difference is, I don't have to make money at it. The other guys have to support themselves at it. Part of the reason, not only is it just from an engineering logical standpoint, but part of the reason is there's a little bit of a memory problem that I think that I incurred. When I was in the first grade, I would walk to school and walk back. As I approached the cross street, a car turned the corner, and I was running full tilt, and I ran right into the back door of that car. It laid me out just colder than a wedge on the street. I am convinced, and not being a neurologist, but I am convinced that because I was the age that I was and that I hit so hard, that there was some kind of damage done. In order for the violin to sing, different places require different thicknesses. And to go from one thickness to the other, it needs to be a very gradual thing. This is one that I'm working on One of the things that I do first, I have a mold so that I can get the proper curvature on the ribs. While this is still in the mold and the ribs are in their definite shape, then I lay them onto the wood and I carve out the back. And I make it so that I have a little overlap. And then once I've cut out the back, then I will carve out the outside so I get the proper curvature. Once I have that done, then I'll trim everything on the inside so that it is smooth, so that there are no square corners. And then I carve the inside, and then once I carve the inside, then I make this, the bass bar. That sits under the bass side of the bridge, but it's very important as far as the tonal qualities. All of the big boys, they just use a sharp knife, and it always looks like they used a sharp knife on it. I use diamond embedded files to make mine just as fine as I can. The first one that I did took me 4 hours to do the 2 sound holes. I've got that down to where it just takes me about an hour and a half now to do the 2 sound holes. So anyway, those are the insides. That's what you can't see. That's what makes it sing. The time to make one violin is 300 hours. 300 hours on the 300 violins that I'm making, that's 90,000 hours. 90,000 hours divided by the standard 2,000 hour work year is 45 years. Where does that leave me? And I'm already in my early 70s, and I've got 45 years of work to do. I'm going to be one old geezer when I get finished.